Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the headless ghost miner. According to the legend, deep in the remote wilderness of Yukon, there once was a thriving mining town. In the late 1800s, tragedy struck when a miner lost his head in a horrific accident deep within the mine shaft. The incident left the town in shock, and the legend of the headless ghost miner was born. Locals claim to this day the spirit of the miner roams the abandoned mining town searching for his lost head. Witnesses report encountering a spectral figure dressed in tattered mining gear carrying a flickering lantern. Despite the absence of a head, the ghostly miner emits blood-curdling screams that echo through the night. Those who have crossed paths with the headless ghost miner speak of an overwhelming sense of dread and an intense feeling of being watched. Some claim to have witnessed the miner's lantern light flicker and heard his disembodied voice calling out for help. The legend has been passed down through generations, warning people to stay away from the haunted mining town after dark. Whether the legend is rooted in real tragedy or fueled by the imagination of storytellers, the tale of the headless ghost miner continues to send shivers down the spines of those who venture into the desolate reaches of Yukon's wilderness. In our number 9 spot today, we have the ghost train of Stoney Trail. Located on the outskirts of Calgary in Alberta, Stoney Trail is a popular highway that encircles the city. According to the legend, late at night, a ghostly train can be seen and heard traveling alongside the highway, even though there are no train tracks in the vicinity. Witnesses claim that the apparition of an old-fashioned train, complete with smoke billowing from its stack and the sound of its whistle, appears out of nowhere and follows the path of Stoney Trail for a short distance before vanishing into thin air. Some even report feeling a chill in the air and a sense of unease when encountering the ghost train. There are various theories surrounding the origins of this paranormal phenomenon. One popular belief is that the ghostly train is a residual haunting, a recording of past events imprinting on the surrounding environment. According to local lore, a train derailed in the area decades ago, resulting in multiple fatalities. It is said that the spirits of the deceased continue to haunt the land, manifesting as the ghost train. Whether the sightings are the result of overactive imaginations, optical illusions, or actual paranormal activity, the legend of the ghost train of Stoney Trail continues to intrigue and captivate those who travel along the highway late at night, reminding them that the boundary between the living and the supernatural may not be as distinct as it seems. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Grey Man. According to the legend, the Grey Man is a spectral figure that haunts the vast prairies and desolate stretches of land in Saskatchewan. The Grey Man is described as a tall and shadowy figure wearing a long, tattered coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscures his face. He is often seen wandering aimlessly in remote areas, appearing and disappearing mysteriously. The legend suggests that encountering the Grey Man brings a profound sense of unease and foreboding to those who witness him. Locals and travelers claim to have seen the Grey Man in various locations across the province, particularly in isolated rural areas and near abandoned homesteads. Witnesses describe feeling an overwhelming sense of being watched or followed, and some have even reported hearing disembodied whispers or the sound of footsteps when there is no one around. The origins of the Grey Man legend are shrouded in mystery. Some speculate that he may be the ghost of a lost soul or a restless spirit bound to the land. Others believe that he serves as a warning or a harbinger of impending doom. The legend of the Grey Man adds a very eerie and supernatural element to Saskatchewan's expansive and secluded landscapes. It continues to intrigue and unsettle those who venture into the remote corners of the province, perpetuating the fascination with the unknown and the paranormal in Saskatchewan folklore. Whether the Grey Man is a figment of imagination or a genuine spectral entity, his legend continues to captivate the imagination of locals and visitors alike. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a creature you may have heard of before, and they are a creature deeply rooted in Indigenous folklore and is said to roam the wilderness of Manitoba. According to legend, the Wendigo is a malevolent spirit or entity that takes the form of a gaunt and emaciated creature. It is often depicted as towering in stature with sunken eyes, long limbs, and antler-like protrusions from its head. The Wendigo is said to be driven by insatiable hunger and an unquenchable desire for human flesh. The legend warns that those who venture into the remote forests of Manitoba may encounter the Wendigo. It is believed that the creature possesses humans, driving them to madness and human consumption. The Wendigo is said to embody the darkest aspects of human greed and gluttony, and the origins of the Wendigo legend are deeply rooted in the folklore of the indigenous peoples of the region, particularly the Algonquin tribes. The story serves as a cautionary tale warning against the dangers of selfishness and the consequences of succumbing to one's primal desires. The legend of the Wendigo continues to captivate the imagination and instill fear in those who venture into the wilderness of Manitoba. In our number 6 spot today, we have the ghostly hitchhiker of Blue Ghost Tunnel. Located in Thorold near Welland Canal here in Ontario, the Blue Ghost Tunnel is an abandoned railway tunnel with a reputation for being haunted. As the legend goes, the ghostly hitchhiker is said to be a young woman who tragically lost her life in the tunnel many years ago. According to the stories, the ghostly hitchhiker is often seen standing near the entrance of the tunnel, dressed in outdated clothing. She appears as a spectral figure, pale and ethereal, emitting an eerie blue glow, hence the name Blue Ghost Tunnel. Legend has it that the ghostly hitchhiker is known to wander the nearby roads, seemingly seeking a ride. Those who have encountered her claim that she vanishes without a trace once they approach or attempt to interact with her. The Blue Ghost Tunnel itself adds to the mystique surrounding this legend. It has a dark and eerie atmosphere with reports of strange sounds, apparitions, and an overall feeling of unease among those who venture inside. The legend has captivated the imaginations of locals and paranormal enthusiasts, drawing visitors to the tunnel in search of ghostly encounters and supernatural experiences. Whether it's a tale born from tragedy, folklore, or simply a product of people's vivid imaginations, the legend of the ghostly hitchhiker of Blue Ghost Tunnel adds an air of mystery and spookiness to Ontario's urban legends. In our number 5 spot today, we have the ghost ship of Northumberland Strait. According to legend, residents of Nova Scotia's Northumberland Strait have reported sightings of a mysterious phantom ship sailing the waters under the cover of night. The ship is said to be a spectral vessel glowing with an otherworldly light and surrounded by an eerie aura. The sightings often describe the ship as an old, weathered vessel with tattered sails billowing in the wind. Witnesses claim that the ship appears and disappears without a trace, leaving no sign of its presence or destination. The ghost ship of Northumberland Strait is believed to be a vessel lost at sea, doomed to wander the waters for eternity. Some versions of the legend suggest that the ship carries the restless spirits of sailors who perished in a tragic maritime accident. Local fishermen and sailors have shared chilling accounts of encountering the ghost ship, describing a bone-chilling silence and a very unsettling feeling of being watched as the phantom vessel passes by. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ghost Bride of St. John. Legend has it that in the late 19th century, a young bride was preparing for her wedding day in St. John, New Brunswick. Tragically, on the day of her wedding, the bride's groom-to-be perished in a shipwreck off the treacherous Bay of Fundy. Heartbroken and devastated, the bride decided to take her own life by jumping off of a cliff into the turbulent waters below. Since then, locals claim to have witnessed this ghostly apparition of a veiled bride wandering near the cliffs overlooking the bay. She is said to appear in a flowing white wedding gown, her face hidden by a very sheer veil. Some have reported hearing her mournful cries or the faint sound of wedding bells carried by the wind. According to the legend, the ghost bride is forever trapped in a state of sorrow and longing, doomed to wander the cliffs in search of her lost love. Some believe that encountering the ghost bride is an omen of misfortune and impending tragedy. The story of the Ghost Bride of St. John's has become an enduring part of New Brunswick's folklore, captivating locals and visitors alike. In our number 3 spot today, we have Ogopogo. The legend of Ogopogo is one of the most famous urban legends in British Columbia, Canada, particularly centered around the Okanagan Lake in the interior of the province. Ogopogo is believed to be a serpentine lake monster resembling a giant sea serpent or a prehistoric creature that inhabits the depths of the lake. According to indigenous legends, the Silks people have long revered Ogopogo as a powerful water spirit or guardian of the lake. The name Ogopogo is derived from the Salish English word meaning water demon. It is said to have a long body, dark greenish-brown scales, and a serpentine head, often described as resembling a cross between a snake and a dinosaur. Over the years, numerous eyewitness accounts and alleged sightings have added to the lore surrounding Ogopogo. Witnesses claim to have seen humps, a snake-like creature, or large disturbances in the water suggestive of a large unknown creature swimming beneath the surface. Some accounts even describe Ogopogo emerging partially from the water, resembling a massive serpent. The legend of Ogopogo has attracted enthusiasts, researchers, and skeptics alike. Various expeditions, sonar scans, and photographic investigations have been conducted in an attempt to capture evidence of the creature's existence. The legend continues to thrive through books, artwork, festivals, and the ongoing fascination with this mysterious lake monster. Whether Ogopogo is a mythical creature, a misidentification of known animals, or an actual remnant from a bygone era, the legend persists, adding a touch of mystery and wonder to the beautiful Okanagan region and its majestic lake. In our number 2 spot today, we have the haunting of Beaconsfield Historic House. Beaconsfield Historic House, located in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, is a Victorian mansion with a rich history. According to local tales, the house is haunted by the spirit of a former resident, a young woman named Lucy Maud Montgomery. Montgomery, renowned as the author of the famous novel Anne of Green Gables, is said to have had a deep connection with the house during her time there. Visitors and staff have reported strange occurrences within the house, including unexplained footsteps, doors opening and closing on their own, and the sound of disembodied laughter echoing through the halls. Some have even claimed to catch glimpses of a ghostly figure resembling Montgomery herself. Many believe that Montgomery's lingering spirit continues to reside within Beaconsfield House, perhaps drawn by the memories and inspiration it holds. The ghostly tales surrounding this historic house have captivated locals and visitors alike, adding an eerie charm to its already compelling history. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Devil's Footprints. The story goes that one winter's night, a small coastal community in Newfoundland and Labrador woke up to find a peculiar set of footprints in the freshly fallen snow. The footprints were incredibly large and hoof-like in shape, leaving the villagers perplexed and fearful. The tracks stretched across rooftops, gardens, and even crossed over bodies of water, defying the laws of nature. Terrified, the townspeople believed that the tracks were the work of the devil himself. They believed that the devil had come to their village to wreak havoc and spread fear among them. Some claimed to have heard eerie laughter in the distance or witnessed strange lights in the sky, accompanying the appearance of the footprints. As word spread, similar sightings of the devil's footprints were reported in neighboring communities, intensifying the fear and intrigue surrounding the legend. Many attempted to follow the tracks, but they always seemed to vanish mysteriously, leaving no trace behind. To this day, the legend of the devil's footprints remains a chilling mystery in the province. Some attribute the phenomenon to natural causes, like unusual weather patterns or hoaxes, while others believe it to be the work of supernatural forces. Regardless of its origins, the legend continues to captivate the imaginations of locals and visitors alike, reminding them of the mysterious and otherworldly aspects of the region's folklore. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky is a former tuberculosis hospital that is said to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. The hospital was operational from 1910 to 1961 and housed thousands of patients suffering from tuberculosis during that time. The building's dark history, which includes reports of medical experiments, neglect, and mistreatment of patients, has led to numerous reports of paranormal activity. Visitors to the abandoned hospital have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghosts of former patients and nurses. The most famous ghostly sighting at Waverly Hills is that of a nurse who is said to have taken her own life in one of the hospital's rooms. Her ghost has been seen by many visitors and is said to be one of the most active spirits in the building. The sanatorium's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to attract ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts from around the world. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital. The Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital, located in Prince Edward County in Ontario, was a psychiatric hospital that operated from 1913 to 1999. The hospital was known for its very controversial treatments and overcrowding, and there are many stories of patient mistreatment and harm. When the hospital closed, it left behind a dark and eerie legacy. The abandoned hospital hospital has become a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal investigators, with many reports of strange noises, unexplained occurrences, and ghostly apparitions. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former patient who is said to roam the halls, as well as the sound of footsteps, screams, which is horrifying, and other unexplained noises. Visitors to the hospital have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair, and many believe that the spirits of former patients still haunt the abandoned building today. In our number 8 spot today, we have Bannack. Bannack, Montana is a ghost town that was once a bustling gold mining community in the late 1800s. Today, however, the town is a popular destination for ghost hunters and urban explorers due to its reputation for being haunted. Visitors to Bannack have reported seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing unexplained noises, and feeling a very strong spiritual energy throughout the town. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former sheriff who was killed in the line of duty, as well as the ghost of a girl who is said to have died from illness in one of the town's homes. Others have reported feeling a strong sense of unease and fear, particularly in the town's abandoned schoolhouse. Very creepy. While the exact reason for Bannack's haunting remains a mystery, many believe that the town's violent past, which includes the numerous killings and deaths that occurred in its heyday, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy that continues to haunt the town today. In our number 7 spot today, we have the CPR Hospital. The abandoned CPR Hospital is located in Saskatchewan, here in Canada, my home province, and it's a different kind of CPR than you might be thinking. In its past life, this hospital was once a hospital for Canadian Pacific Railway workers in the early 1900s. The hospital closed its doors in the 1980s and has been abandoned ever since. Today, the hospital is a popular spot for ghost hunters and urban explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to the hospital have reported hearing strange noises, including the sound of footsteps and the disembodied voices of former patients and staff. Some have even reported seeing apparitions, including the ghostly figure of a former nurse who died in a tragic accident. The hospital's haunting history is thought to be linked to the many tragedies that occurred during its time as a working hospital. Whether or not the hospital is truly haunted remains up for debate, but its eerie atmosphere and mysterious past continue to draw visitors from far and wide. In our number 6 spot today, we have Bodie. Bodie, which is located in California, is a former mining town that is now a ghost town and state historic park. The town was established in 1859 and was the home to a thriving gold rush community until the early 1900s, when the mines began to close. The town's isolation and very harsh living conditions made it a very difficult place to live, and it was eventually abandoned. The remaining buildings, which have been preserved in a state of quote arrested decay, make it a popular spot for tourists and ghost hunters alike. Visitors to Bodie have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even, of course, seeing a ghost or two. Some believe that the town's violent history, which includes shootouts and executions, has caused it to become haunted. Others believe that the spirits of former residents still roam the streets, unable to let go of their former lives. Bodie's haunting history and well-preserved buildings make it a fascinating but very eerie place to visit. In our number 5 spot today, we have Val Jalbert. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert, located in Quebec, Canada, was once a thriving pulp mill town in the 1920s. However, after the mill closed in the 1940s, the town was abandoned and left to decay. Today, the village is a very popular spot for tourists and explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to Val Jalbert have reported feeling a sense of unease and hearing strange noises, including whispers and footsteps. I think that whispers is like the worst. No, voices is one thing, whispers is worse. There are also rumors of a ghostly figure that haunts the village's church, as well as other apparitions that have been spotted throughout the abandoned buildings. Many people believe that the town's tragic history, which includes a devastating fire and several deaths, has caused it to become haunted. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert is a fascinating and eerie place to visit, and its haunting history and ghostly tales continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 4 spot today, we have Six Flags New Orleans. Orleans. Six Flags New Orleans, of course located in Louisiana, was once a very popular theme park that closed its doors after Hurricane Katrina devastated the area in 2005. Since then, the park has been abandoned and left to decay, leading many to believe that it is haunted. Visitors to the park have reported hearing strange noises and seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghost of a former employee who is said to have died on the property. There are also rumors of ghostly figures that can be seen walking through the abandoned park at night. While many of the park's attractions have been dismantled at this point, some of the structures still stand, including the abandoned roller coasters and the very creepy, dilapidated clown head that once served as the park's entrance. The park's haunting history and eerie atmosphere have made it a very popular destination for urban explorers and ghost hunters alike. However, visitors are warned that the property is unsafe and trespassing is strictly prohibited. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Central Experimental Farm. Located in Ottawa, Ontario, this farm is a research facility that has been in operation since 1886. However, despite its scientific purpose, the farm has a reputation for being haunted. Visitors to the farm have reported seeing ghosts, hearing unexplained noises, and also feeling an eerie presence. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former farm worker who died on the property, as well as the ghost of a woman who is said to haunt the farm's historic farmhouse. There are also rumors of a ghostly horse-drawn carriage that can be seen driving through the farm's fields. While the exact reason for the farm's haunting remains unknown, many believe that the many tragedies that have occurred on the property, including accidents and deaths, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy. The Central Experimental Farm is a fascinating and eerie location, and its haunting history and the ghostly tales surrounding it continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 2 spot today, we have Centralia. Located in Pennsylvania, this town is often referred to as one of the gateways to hell. That is due to the fire that spread in an underground coal mine underneath the town in 1962. The fire, which is believed to have been started by a trash fire that spread to the coal seam, has been burning for over 60 years and has caused the town to be evacuated due to toxic fumes and the risk of collapse. As the fire still blazes underground, it causes the smoke and poisonous gases to rise up from the ground, not only causing an eerie appearance, but also a very serious health hazard. The temperatures can be so hot in the area that one guy's backyard was measured at 626 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes the fire will also burn through supports underground, which in the end turns into a sinkhole. This has caused pets, wildlife, and residents to unsuspectingly get swallowed up into the hole. In 1984, the US government ordered a total evacuation of the town, but a handful of residents refused to leave and even went to court over the right to stay in the town for as long as they live. The abandoned buildings, cracked and buckled roads, and just eerie silence makes it a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal enthusiasts. Some believe that the town's dark history combined with the ongoing fire has caused the area to become haunted. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Eastern State Penitentiary. The Eastern State Penitentiary, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is known for its haunting history. The prison was operational for almost 150 years from 1829 until its closure in 1971, and it was once the home to some of the country's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone. The prison's imposing Gothic architecture and innovative design, which placed an emphasis on solitary confinement and rehabilitation, made it one of the most famous prisons of its time. However, its harsh conditions and notorious history also make it a popular spot for ghost hunters and people who love all things paranormal. Visitors have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghosts, including the ghost of a guard who was killed by an inmate. Some even claim to have been touched or pushed by unseen forces. The prison's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to fascinate as well as frighten visitors to this day.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the tunnel monster of Cabbagetown. In August 1978, a man called Ernest had a run-in with a very strange creature in Toronto. He and his wife were raising kittens at the time, and one of them escaped. While he was looking for the kitten, he stumbled into a nearby cave and he saw, in his own words, a living nightmare I'll never forget. Ernest described the monster as long and thin, almost like a monkey, 3 feet long, large teeth, weighing maybe 30 pounds with slate grey fur. He also said its eyes were orange and red and slanted. Before he even had time to process what was actually in front of him, the creature spoke to him. It said, "Go away, go away," in a sort of hissing voice. Then it scurried off down a long tunnel. Ernest was done at that point. He got out of there as fast as he could, shaking with fear. He never approached the media with his story. He was afraid people would think that he was drunk or even crazy. His story only reached the media when people began to leak it to the local newspaper. He only agreed to talk to them if his last name was hidden. The article contained this artist's rendition of the creature. It does look humanoid in nature, but also kind of out of proportion, as if it had been deformed by its years scuttling around in the Toronto sewers. Ever since then, people have reported seeing this tunnel monster still lurking down there in the shadows. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the alien base. In 2017, media outlets started reporting sightings of strange lights hovering over Lake Ontario. Within a few days, people were convinced this was proof of alien activity there. Conspiracy theorists believe that there is an alien base which causes these strange light patterns. These orbs of light have been seen flying in the general direction of a local power plant. Is there anything behind that? Perhaps. The story ended up reaching such a climax that the government was forced to issue a statement. They said that the Canadian Armed Forces were actually conducting training operations in the area, and those exercises may have caused this visual phenomenon. Of course, this has done little to quieten down the conspiracy theorists, who are now more certain than ever of the alien base beneath the lake. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the lemon mine. Ever since the 1870s, people in Alberta have talked about the lemon mine, a rich gold mine that is somewhere out there in the Alberta Rockies. Nobody has been able to find it, but a geologist called Ron Stewart once claimed that he actually had. Skeptics always say there's no proof of the mine ever existing at all. According to legend, the mine was first discovered in 1870 when 2 prospectors, Frank Jack and Black Jack, stumbled across more gold in a cave than they had ever seen in their lives. Once their joy had subsided though, the men began to argue. They couldn't agree on whether to stay put at the mine or return to it in the spring. The argument escalated, and in a rage, Lemon grabbed an axe and murdered Blackjack as he slept. He was then consumed by guilt and wandered out into the hills, never able to find the mine again. Ever since then, nobody else has, and the only clues seem to lie in this murderous story. Coming in at the number 7 spot now, we have Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. This is the oldest remaining lighthouse on the Great Lakes and the second oldest in Canada. It was built in 1808 and guided ships for 150 years before being decommissioned in 1958. The first lighthouse keeper was a man called J.P. Raidmuller. He disappeared under mysterious circumstances on January 2nd, 1815. Now legend says that he was actually murdered by 2 soldiers who had been enjoying his home brew a bit too much. The killers dismembered him and buried his body in a few graves near the lighthouse. The brutal death and lack of justice is said to have made this man into a ghost. The story seems like many other ghost stories, but it does seem to have a little bit of physical evidence tied to it, apparently. One former lighthouse keeper did report digging up a coffin in the area that I described before. He found a small coffin. Inside this small coffin was a single human jawbone. Pretty grisly. Coming at number 6 now, we have the Nana Bozo. This is an old story from Canadian folklore that originates from the Ojibwe tribe. The legend goes that long ago, a beautiful woman lived on the moon and watched over the earth. She was loved by all the people except 2 women who were very jealous of her. So one night, they pushed her off the moon. The woman fell off the moon and fell into a lake. There, the local tribe greeted her and built her a wigwam. Eventually, they would come to her for advice. They named her Nokomis, and after a very long time, the woman fell pregnant. She gave birth to a daughter, Winona. When the daughter grew up, she was courted by many of the braves and the surrounding tribes, but she denied all of them. One day, Winona was walking in the forest when the wind decided that he wanted to steal her, so the wind swept her up and took her way out west to put her in a shack. Nokomis was devastated and tried to use all sorts of magic to bring her daughter back, but nothing worked. An eagle came down and told her what the wind had done to her daughter and said that the wind beat Winona. The The tale continues for quite a while and follows Nokomis and her attempts to bring her daughter back, fighting through the elements and brutal tragedy. It's a legend that really has stood the test of time. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Lady in Red. The Lower Bay subway station in Toronto is famous among paranormal investigators. Many people have claimed that it's haunted, specifically by the Lady in Red. People say she has black holes for eyes. Her legs are nowhere to be seen as she just floats along the railway tracks. Even subway workers have reported seeing the Lady in Red. Some have said they experience unusually cold drafts blowing down the tracks in areas where cold drafts should be physically impossible. Of course, the next question is, who is the Lady in Red? Well, some believe that she was a woman who either jumped or was even pushed into the tracks when a train came by one day. Some of the subway staff believe that her ghost came to reside in the old pump room in the station and that she uses that as her base to head out and haunt the tracks. Despite the many stories about the Lady in Red, nobody has ever reported making actual contact with her and hearing the story from the horse's mouth. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Sasquatch. I was surprised I didn't mention this one in the first video, but oh well, here we are now. The Sasquatch is said to be a large ape-like creature that lives along the west coast of British Columbia and also in northern California. It's often described as a bipedal creature, 2.75 meters in height and 360 kilograms in weight. They're covered in long dark hair and leave large 50-centimeter footprints that amount to most of the proof provided by believers. The sightings are not a recent thing either. Going way back to 1884, there was actually an article that described the capture of a half-man, half-beast near Yale, British Columbia. The people who found the creature described it as something of a gorilla type that also resembled a human covered in thick, glossy black hair. The creature was said to be found unconscious on some railway tracks. When it awoke, it was chased away by a group of men. In the years since then, evidence for the Sasquatch has amounted to first-hand accounts, some tracks and bits of fur left behind on trees. Not enough for scientific confirmation, but enough to keep the legend alive. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Soldier's Tower. Students at the University of Toronto are well aware, I'm sure, of the many ghost tales that surround the almost 200-year-old establishment. One of the most famous is perhaps the Soldier's Tower. It's a memorial to the fallen Canadian soldiers of World War I. However, the bell tower is also known for a very grisly tale. Legend says that in the 1930s, a worker went up there to polish the bells at the very top of the tower. In a freak accident, he fell to his tragic death on the sidewalk directly under the tower. In the years since then, people claim they have seen the man's ghost repeat this tragedy over and over again, spiraling down and landing on the pavement before disappearing. I've saved the most disturbing part of this story till the very end. Some witnesses have described this apparition as having the flesh and blood of an actual human being before disappearing into the ground. I don't know why, but like a fleshy, bloody ghost is about 5 times scarier than a normal one. Gross. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the ROM. The Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto is over 100 years old and full of fascinating artifacts. Among the many ghostly inhabitants, 2 are always talked about. One of them is called Charles Trick Curley. He was the original director of the museum. People say they've seen him wearing a nightshirt and wandering through the East Asiatic collection. Some have reported strange occurrences in this gallery and have even seen the director himself. Why is he there? Does he have some sort of unfinished work perhaps? It has to be something very serious to actually haunt your own place of work for eternity. The other ghost is said to be of a little girl called Celeste. Staff and visitors alike have reported seeing her tiny apparition sitting in the McLaughlin Planetarium watching the shows. The planetarium has now been closed for years since the last sightings, and nobody is quite sure if she still wanders among the seats there, waiting for one final show. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Bashful Monster. That's the sort of nickname given to this creature that some say is like the Canadian cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. For over a century, locals at Okanagan Lake in British Columbia have talked about a monster that they simply refer to as Ogo Pogo. There have been over 1,000 sightings. The Native Americans in the area often speak of the monster. They refer to it as Nataka, or the Lake Devil. According to their legend, when they arrived in the area, they had to try and distract the fearsome monster by throwing a small animal into the lake so that they could cross it. Descriptions of the creature are varied, but some people have said it looks like a frog from the front and a dinosaur from the back. Now, if you're struggling to mentally picture that, don't worry. I think everyone is. Only the people who have seen the Ogopogo will ever know what it truly looks like. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Cressy. Cressy is said to be a mysterious, eel-like creature that lurks in the waters of Crescent Lake in Newfoundland and Labrador. Stories of Cressy date back to native Canadian legends, which refer to it as the pond devil or swimming demon. Their fears were also held by European settlers who arrived at the lake during the early 20th century. Since then, there have been dozens of sightings of Cressy, with one report saying it could be as much as 15 feet long. Next up at number 9 now, we have the St. Louis Ghost Train. In the town of St. Louis in Saskatchewan lies the village of St. Louis. There, you can find an old abandoned train track. Now, many of the locals there have reported seeing strange floating lights moving along the train track during the night. Others have said that a ghost train will appear on the track looking just like the ones from the 19th century. Another story is that the ghost of a workman who died during the track's construction will appear at night. At number 8 now, we have the Forbidden Plateau. This plateau in Western Canada has long been regarded as a mysterious place. The native Canadians would hide their families in the forested plateau during wars with other tribes. One day, the warriors returned to find their family had disappeared. They believe that evil spirits took them away, and they vowed to never step foot there again, earning it the name of the Forbidden Plateau. Many people have taken this story to heart and stay clear of the eerie presence there. Next up at number 7 now, we have Young Teaser. This was an American ship that was destroyed in the War of 1812. It was wrecked in Nova Scotia, where some people believe its ghost can still be seen today. People swear they have seen the Teaser light, a fiery glow of a flaming ship near the site of the explosion. Accounts began in the late 19th century, and since then many people have said that the ship appears on the 27th of June, the day it sank. Others have gone even further and said the ship also holds the ghosts of the sailors who died in the explosion, forced to relive their deaths forever. At number 6 now, we have Christie Mansion. It's now Regis College in Toronto, but Christie Mansion used to be the home of William Mellis Christie, a successful businessman in the city. His son Robert inherited the mansion and set up a secret chamber for his mistress. She lived there for many years until Robert's affections for her began to wane. Eventually, she was said to have hung herself in room 29. Ever since then, people have said the room is cursed. Legend says that if you enter room 29 by yourself at night, the door will swing shut by itself and you'll be trapped there forever, just like the ghost of the mistress. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Peggy's Cove. On a rocky outcrop in Nova Scotia, you can find a lonely lighthouse. The story goes that in 1800, a woman named Peggy washed up on the rocks there after being shipwrecked. Tragically, her children all drowned. Peggy went on to marry one of the locals and lived on that cove. She would often walk along the rocks at night, calling out to them in her grief. One night, her husband went out with her and danced on the rocks with her to cheer her up. He lost his footing though and slipped, sending him into the rocks, which killed him. Soon after, in absolute grief, she jumped off the same rocks and ended her life. Visitors swear that on a dark, stormy night, you can see the ghost of a woman in a blue dress standing at the edge of the rocks, ready to jump. Next up at number 4 now, we have John Troyer. By all accounts, he might be the closest thing Canada has to a witch hunter. He was born into an Amish family in America before relocating to Ontario in Canada. He was a doctor who was terrified of witches. Legend says that he would stalk witches in the woods there until they led him to their den. He would then steal their broomsticks for personal transport. He would also set up actual witch traps to capture them. Now, whether or not you believe the whole broomstick or witches thing, there is evidence of John Troyer's traps, which are essentially human-sized bear traps. Coming at number 3 now, we have the Dungarvan Whooper. This is a famous ghost story coming from New Brunswick and dating back to the late 19th century. According to legend, a young Irish cook called Ryan worked at a lumberjack camp. While the other lumberjacks were out one day, the boss killed Ryan. When they returned, he told them Ryan just got sick and died suddenly. They buried him some distance from the camp. However, a loud whooping sound kept them awake. The whooping got so loud that they fled the camp, convinced it was Ryan's vengeful ghost. In the years since then, many people have reported the whooping sound that can be heard in the woods as Ryan seeks vengeance on the living. Next up at number 2 now, we have the legend of Rose La Tulipe. This is a French-Canadian legend that dates back to the 18th century. There are more than 200 different versions of the legend, but they mostly share the same theme. Rose La Tulipe was a young girl who loved to dance. On the night of Mardi Gras, a stranger appeared at her house and danced with her until midnight. At that moment, he was revealed to be the devil. She tried to escape, but it was too late. The devil took Rose back to hell, where she remains to this day, dancing with her at his whim. And finally, number 1 now, we have Oak Island. Legend says that treasure can be found on Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Since the 19th century, people have have been convinced the treasure there includes the likes of Marie Antoinette's jewels and even missing Shakespeare manuscripts. A number of people have died trying to search for this treasure. The legend all began with the discovery of a large pit which seems to be man-made. It's almost 200 feet deep at one point and has been protected by booby traps which have killed a number of explorers. There are even underground channels that lead to the beach over 500 feet away. Treasure hunters are convinced that all of this must have been built to hide treasure from hunters hundreds of years ago.
First up, in at number 10, we have the Caddy monster that has been spotted for the past 200 years. People in the coastal region of British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada, has been spotting this creature right here. This is what people might have been calling the Loch Ness monster. The full name of the creature is Catoborosaurus, but it's nicknamed Caddy because that's just way easier to say, and this is a folklore that has been passed down from generation to generation. Number 9, we have the ghost of Christie Mansion. The legend starts off with Robert Christie, who first came to Toronto in 1848. He was a teenager. Well, he worked in a bakery until one day he owned his own company, Mr. Christie, and he was known for his famous cookies, and in the 50s he opened up a factory like 5 minutes from where I live. It's pretty crazy to think about it. I smell all those cookies, although just recently it shut down, so that amazing smell, yeah, also shut down. Well, there's a myth about his mistress. Robert set up a secret chamber in his mansion where his mistress lived there secretly. The room she was hiding in, or maybe forced to live in, was room 29. Well, one night she hung herself, so now the legend has it that if you enter room 29 all by yourself at nighttime, the door will swing shut on its own and you will be trapped inside of it forever, just like Robert Christie's mistress was. Next up, number 8, we have the Tethys Lake monster that looks like this. This looks pretty similar to the Gill Man in the movie from the 50s. Well, this legendary creature was apparently spotted in Victoria, British Columbia. Two boys have claimed to see this monster emerge from the Tethys Lake beach, and they described it as a creature with silvery scaly skin, sharp claws, and spikes on its head. This was reported back in 1972, and it actually made it into the newspaper right on the front of it. Police also investigated this claim, but there was no evidence found. There were also these two boys fishing on the opposite side of the lake who have also claimed to have seen the monster. It seems like the monster has been spotted since the 70s, and somehow ever since then it's able to stay in hiding. Number 7, we have the site of the famous Peggy's Point Lighthouse that is located in Nova Scotia, so we're talking about the east coast of Canada. This place is said to be haunted by a ghost of a woman named Margaret, who took her own life in 1800. Well, according to this local legend in Nova Scotia, Margaret was a survivor of a shipwreck that killed all of her children. During her grieving period, she would often wander the rocks at the edge of the sea. Well, one day her husband, in an attempt to cheer her up, was dancing on the rocks when she slipped and suffered a fatal head wound. It's like this woman is just really bad luck, so she decided to take her own life by jumping into the sea. Ever since then, there has been so many reports of a mysterious lady in blue who looks like she's about to jump in the sea. And when people go to try to help her out, when they get closer to her, she just disappears. Like, where does she go? So now the ghost of Margaret lives on, haunting the province. Moving right along into number 6, we have the Sasquatch, famously known as Bigfoot. I had no idea that this was actually a Canadian urban legend. Well, parts of North America, primarily Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, well, these are the most common places Bigfoot has been spotted. Bigfoot is probably one of the most famous folklores in the world, and it's from my country. I mean, I don't know if I should be happy about that or terrified. Bigfoot are known to be these really huge ape-like creatures that are hairy and can walk like humans, and have been known to leave a really big footprints. I'm not sure how Bigfoot at this point could be faked. I mean, how do so many people spot it, but yet it's still a myth today? Why can't we confirm this damn thing already? Is everyone just making up stories? Is everyone a storyteller? Stories of Bigfoot has been around since the 1800s. I mean, could this be generations and generations of lying people? Alright, the legend and myths of Nana Bozo is up next on our list. And this shape-shifting trickster is at number 5. Nanobozo is also known as Nanobush. Well, Nanobush's gender is undefined and changeable. Also, the Nanobush can appear as different animals. Nanobush most often appears in the shape of a rabbit, so I might actually have 2 Nanobushes right at home, and I'm pretty sure I'm terrified when I read this. What if my rabbits can actually understand every single thing I'm saying and they're plotting something against me? And they're just being patiently, because I've had them for like 4 years and nothing's happened yet. Well, the Nanobush myth is often told as children's stories. Moving into number 4, okay, so apparently people actually believe that Ontario and Area 51 have a lot in common when it comes to aliens and theories around them. It is rumored that in Mississauga, the Lakeview hydroelectric power plant might be hiding aliens because people have seen multiple UFO sightings. At nighttime, people have seen orbs of light coming out of the building. I think it's just electricity, but people say otherwise. People think it might be alien invasion. Underneath the hydroelectric power plants, there are sewer lines, and that's apparently how the aliens are able to get around undetected. I guess the aliens did a bad job at that because people have reported seeing them. Let's move on to the St. Louis ghost train that has been seen floating in the air at number 3. Let me take you guys over to a tiny village of St. Louis, which is located in Saskatchewan. Try to spell that word for me. Alright, this tiny village was able to put itself on the map because they have been known for a pretty bizarre legend about an abandoned train wreck. People have often reported seeing strange floating lights moving along the train tracks during the nighttime. These sightings have gone way back to the 20s, and generations after that have also claimed to have seen these floating lights at nighttime. In the 80s, the track were actually removed, which made it impossible to see train lights because there's no train. How can a train be somewhere with no train tracks? But somehow people were still able to see a ghost train. People also claim to see a man who died during the construction of the tracks. Number 2. Okay, sorry, that actually freaked me out as well, but we're gonna be talking about the spirit of a girl who haunted the Screaming Tunnels. The tunnel is known as the Screaming Tunnel or Blue Ghost Tunnel. I call it Never Enter Tunnel. It was built in the early 1900s. It was used as a pathway for farmers to use. Well, there's a story about how the tunnel caught fire when a girl was inside of it. The girl ran screaming from the fire trying to get away, but she was burned to death. Some believe that this little girl's father might have burned her alive in the tunnels. You could still go inside of the tunnels today, but you should only go if you're brave enough. So be warned. For me, I'm not brave enough. I'm never gonna experience that tunnel. Apparently you can actually feel and hear the girl screaming in the tunnels. I do live about an hour away from the Screaming Tunnel, but I don't think I'm ever going to enter it. What do you guys think? Should I go there? Should I bring a camera? Should I record it? I mean, I am a YouTuber. And finally, and at number 1, we have Wendigo. That has been haunting people in the woods, possibly haunting me in the woods of Ontario, in the exact same forests that I've been camping at. The Wendigo might appear as a monster with some characteristics of a human, or as a spirit who has possessed a human being and made them become monstrous. It is historically associated with murder.
Coming in at number 10, we have the ghost of Old Finch Road. Ah, the Old Finch Road. This road divides residential Scarborough and the forest, already very spooky, and it's located near the Toronto Zoo. According to frequenters of the road, a girl named Sue or Susie died near a bridge on the Old Finch Road on her birthday. Bad luck for Susie. People often go to the stretch and sing happy birthday in order to provoke the ghost of Susie, who's said to cry or shriek when she hears the song. The legend is supported by local graffiti in the area. The words happy birthday are spray painted onto a nearby rock. Local newspapers don't seem to reflect any girl named Susie being killed on her birthday in the area, but the location has been a hotspot for crime over the years. Despite the lack of archive evidence, Anyone who frequents the area will tell you about the crazy moans and screams they hear along the road at night. However, there may be a logical explanation: the proximity to the zoo. When agitated, the fowl have been known to emit a foul noise. Is the ghost of Susie just a particularly angry peacock? Toronto has its very own Nessie at number 9. We have the Serpent of Lake Ontario. Is there a snake in the lake? Maybe. This is possible according to legend anyway. Back when Toronto was called York and Canada wasn't called Canada, settlers noticed something going on in Lake Ontario. Sure enough, they consulted the Seneca and legend told of a huge beast. This beast was called Gassian Dether and was said to live at the depths of the lake. According to the Seneca, the serpent could shoot fire from its mouth. As the 1800s progressed and the city eventually became Toronto developed, more reports of a huge 30-foot snake in the lake just kept on surfacing. It seems old Snakey in the Lakey liked to swim. He was also spotted in Kingston, Ontario, leading to popular legends of Kinksty. Many cryptozoologists think the lake monster could be some kind of old dinosaur, a large long-necked marine reptile. The last time someone spotted old Snaky Gassy was in the late 1960s. Is he still out there? Coming into number 8, we have the mystery of the whale bones. The whale bones of Lake Ontario have caused a lot of mystery and debate and sparked their own urban legends. Basically, in 1987, construction on the harbourfront streetcar terminal began, and an 11,000-year-old whale vertebrae was unearthed. This led to many considering the possibility that whales had swum in Lake Ontario, although geologists, zoologists, and scientists alike didn't think that happened. If they didn't know, how did the bones come to be in that area by the lake? Some think they came from an old exhibited whale carcass at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. When the whale became too degraded to show, portions were disposed of in the lake. Now, DNA testing on the bone may lend credence to this theory. The bone turned out to be just a few hundred years old, not thousands. Its placement in the lake, however, is still up for debate and a cause of great mystery. Coming into number 7, we have the ghosts of Casa Loma. Ghosts just love haunting a castle, don't they? Casa Loma is a relatively new castle built in 1914 as a Gothic revival mansion by Sir Henry Pellet. The castle-style mansion is said to be haunted by a number of ghosts, firstly by Mr. and Mrs. Pellet themselves, the original owners, who were turfed out when they could no longer afford the upkeep. The most cited ghost, however, is a lady in white. She's been spotted all over the building. The White Lady is someone we believe to have been a maid who worked in the castle in its early days of operation. Now, this was around the time when Toronto was plagued with an influenza that killed 60,000 people. Casa Loma is frequently visited by ghost tourists and puts on a banging Halloween spooky house event. Gotta go there. Coming into number 6, we have the tunnel monsters of Cabbagetown. Cabbagetown is a pretty cool area slightly east of downtown Toronto. You can get a good curry near Cabbagetown, although there might be more than this neighbourhood of the 6 than meets the eye. In March 1979, 51-year-old Ernest was looking for his lost cat along his Parliament Street neighbourhood. His search led him to a tunnel opening. Now, as he wiggled in the tunnel, flashlight in hand, he saw something that truly tested his beliefs. His light illuminated a furry, monkey-looking creature with orangey red eyes and large teeth. He described the thing as being 3 feet tall with the ability to speak. The creature hissed and told him to go away before it ran off down a tunnel. Ernest then spoke to a journalist at The Sun and said the entrance of the tunnel was in a sewage system that runs under the subway. Being a big local news publication, a lot of people read the article and were very intrigued by the sound of the tunnel monster. Many people even went out to look for it. Now, despite the press coverage, nobody's ever managed to spot the creature. That being said, the description of the Cabbagetown monster is similar to that of the Memagwesi, a small water spirit according to Algonquin mythology. Could Ernest have been seeing one of those critters, and do they still live in the sewers of the city? Coming into number 5, we have the Toronto aerial jellyfish. There might be something going on in the skies of Toronto. In 2012, atmospheric jellyfish were spotted hovering over the city. Now, atmospheric jellyfish are UFO sensations and have been spotted before in China, the Netherlands, Norway, and recently in Toronto, Canada. An eyewitness reported the sighting. They said, "The thing came down from above the clouds slowly, descending for about a minute before I began filming. The details are actually kind of sketchy, but I don't know, maybe he did see something." Canada's best documented UFO sighting was over a lake in Nova Scotia in the 1960s. Coming into number 4, we have the cookie ghost of Christie Mansion. The Christie family were well known in Toronto, with Christie Street named after biscuit maker William Mellis Christie. He was a self-made entrepreneur who revolutionized the Canadian biscuit industry. When he died, he left his cookie business and his assets to his son, who took up residence in the family mansion, the Christie Mansion near Queen's Park. It seems that Christie Jr. Robert Christie had a mistress as well as his wife. He had her hauled up in a secret room of his mansion. Now this room was room 29 according to legend. She had a butler and a maid to bring her food and tidy up after her, and Robert would come to her at night for their illicit rendezvous. Eventually, his interest in the woman started to wane and she could no longer stand being held prisoner waiting for him to come. She hung herself using her bed sheets and her body was secretly removed and buried in Queen's Park. Legend has it, her spirit stayed in room 29, and if anyone finds themselves alone in the room at night, the door swings shut and locks itself and you can't get out, just like she couldn't get out when Robert left her. They say that you will be stuck there until the morning. Coming into number 3, we have the Ghoul of Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. I love this lighthouse on the island. The Toronto Island is pretty much my favourite thing about the entire city, and Danny and I went with a bunch of our friends recently and he badly sunburnt his nose, so the legends about needing sun lotion when you're a pale white Irishman are true. Are the legends of the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse true though? The lighthouse on the island is one of the oldest buildings in Toronto and the second oldest lighthouse in all of Canada. It was built in 1808 and guided ships into the Toronto harbour on Lake Ontario. The story goes that a lighthouse watchman was murdered there and his ghost still haunts the tower to this day. The first keeper, Raid Muller, disappeared in January 1815, with local legends saying that he was murdered by sailors who cut up his body and buried it all around the island. Later, lighthouse keeper George Dernan was said to have dug up his jawbone. The lost spirit of Raid Muller is said to roam the island but is most commonly haunting the tower. Coming into number 2, we have the urban legend of Tim Hortons spiking their coffee. Tim's is a Canadian institution, despite no longer actually being a Canadian-owned company. Everyone I know goes to Tim Hortons pretty regularly, and we all agree that it isn't even the greatest coffee, but something just keeps us coming back. Well, the urban legend has it that good old Tim is spiking his coffee with nicotine to make it more addictive. Some say that the brew is mixed with the drug, others say that the cups are sprayed with it so that nothing shows up when the coffee is tested from the source. The classic story seems to go that an American hops over the border to the friendly Great White North. They stay with their relatives and adopt their habit of having a Tim's every day. When they get back to the States, they have their blood tested for some kind of routine checkup, and actually it reveals that there's a significant amount of nicotine in their bloodstream. The urban legend has become so popular that Tim Hortons even released a statement to say, "There is in fact nothing added to our coffee. We believe that our guests are addicted to consistency." I actually really somewhat doubt that. Tim Hortons coffee is wildly inconsistent. You get a good cup, you can get a bad cup. Either way, our mate Michael McCrudden loves a good Tim Hortons. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most famous Toronto stories ever. We have the legend of the Leaping Lawyer. The Leaping Lawyer of the TD Tower in Toronto's financial district has gone down as something of a morbid legend. Little did Gary Hoy know when he plunged to his death from the 24th story of the tower that he would win a slew of posthumous awards and accolades. The legend goes that a crazy banker accidentally fell to his death from the tower whilst playing a practical joke on a group of students, and actually that's pretty accurate. Hoy was a senior partner at Holden Day Wilson firm and he loved a good laugh. His party piece was testing the strength of skyscraper windows, and one day when a group of articling students were in the building, he hauled himself at a 24th floor glass window to prove how strong the glass was. The first time he played his party trick, all was well, but the second time, well, he was less fun. He fell to his death as the glass smashed. Not a great way to go. His death has gone down in history and was even included in the TV series 1000 Ways to Die. That really isn't a way that I'd like to die, to be honest with you. Nonetheless, his legend lives on.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky is a former tuberculosis hospital that is said to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. The hospital was operational from 19 1910 to 1961 and housed thousands of patients suffering from tuberculosis during that time. The building's dark history, which includes reports of medical experiments, neglect, and mistreatment of patients, has led to numerous reports of paranormal activity. Visitors to the abandoned hospital have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghosts of former patients and nurses. The most famous ghostly sighting at Waverly Hills is that of a nurse who is said to have taken her own life in one of the hospital's rooms. Her ghost has been seen by many visitors and is said to be one of the most active spirits in the building. The sanatorium's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to attract ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts from around the world. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital. The Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital, located in Prince Edward County in Ontario, was a psychiatric hospital that operated from 1913 to 1999. The hospital was known for its very controversial treatments and overcrowding, and there are many stories of patient mistreatment and harm. When the hospital closed, it left behind a dark and eerie legacy. The abandoned hospital has become a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal investigators, with many reports of strange noises, unexplained occurrences, and ghostly apparitions. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former patient who is said to roam the halls, as well as the sound of footsteps, screams, which is horrifying, and other unexplained noises. Visitors to the hospital have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair, and many believe that the spirits of former patients still haunt the abandoned building today. In our number 8 spot today, we have Bannock. Bannock, Montana is a ghost town that was once a bustling gold mining community in the late 1800s. Today, however, the town is a popular destination for ghost hunters and urban explorers due to its reputation for being haunted. Visitors to Bannock have reported seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing unexplained noises, and feeling a very strong spiritual energy throughout the town. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former sheriff who was killed in the line of duty, as well as the ghost of a girl who is said to have died from illness in one of the town's homes. Others have reported feeling a strong sense of unease and fear, particularly in the town's abandoned schoolhouse. Very creepy. While the exact reason for Bannock's haunting remains a mystery, many believe that the town's violent past, which includes the numerous killings and deaths that occurred in its heyday, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy that continues to haunt the town today. In our number 7 spot today, we have the CPR Hospital. The abandoned CPR Hospital is located in Saskatchewan, here in Canada, my home province, and it's a different kind of CPR than you might be thinking. In its past life, this hospital was once a hospital for Canadian Pacific Railway workers in the early 1900s. The hospital closed its doors in the 1980s and has been abandoned ever since. Today, the hospital is a popular spot for ghost hunters and urban explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to the hospital have reported hearing strange noises, including the sound of footsteps and the disembodied voices of former patients and staff. Some have even reported seeing apparitions, including the ghostly figure of a former nurse who died in a tragic accident. The hospital's haunting history is thought to be linked to the many tragedies that occurred during its time as a working hospital. Whether or not the hospital is truly haunted remains up for debate, but its eerie atmosphere and mysterious past continue to draw visitors from far and wide. In our number 6 spot today, we have Bodie. Bodie, which is located in California, is a former mining town that is now a ghost town and state historic park. The town was established in 1859 and was the home to a thriving gold rush community until the early 1900s, when the mines began to close. The town's isolation and very harsh living conditions made it a very difficult place to live, and it was eventually abandoned. The remaining buildings, which have been preserved in a state of quote arrested decay, make it a popular spot for tourists and ghost hunters alike. Visitors to Bodie have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even, of course, seeing a ghost or two. Some believe that the town's violent history, which includes shootouts and executions, has caused it to become haunted. Others believe that the spirits of former residents still roam the streets, unable to let go of their former lives. Bodie's haunting history and well-preserved buildings make it a fascinating but very eerie place to visit. In our number 5 spot today, we have Val Jalbert. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert, located in Quebec, Canada, was once a thriving pulp mill town in the 1920s. However, after the mill closed in the 1940s, the town was abandoned and left to decay. Today, the village is a very popular spot for tourists and explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to Val Jalbert have reported feeling a sense of unease and hearing strange noises, including whispers and footsteps. I think that whispers is like the worst. No, voices is one thing, whispers is worse. There are also rumors of a ghostly figure that haunts the village's church, as well as other apparitions that have been spotted throughout the abandoned buildings. Many people believe that the town's tragic history, which includes a devastating fire and several deaths, has caused it to become haunted. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert is a fascinating and eerie place to visit, and its haunting history and ghostly tales continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 4 spot today, we have Six Flags New Orleans. Six Flags New Orleans, of course located in Louisiana, was once a very popular theme park that closed its doors after Hurricane Katrina devastated the area in 2005. Since then, the park has been abandoned and left to decay, leading many to believe that it is haunted. Visitors to the park have reported hearing strange noises and seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghost of a former employee who is said to have died on the property. There are also rumors of ghostly figures that can be seen walking through the abandoned park at night. While many of the park's attractions have been dismantled at this point, some of the structures still stand, including the abandoned roller coasters and the very creepy, dilapidated clown head that once served as the park's entrance. The park's haunting history and eerie atmosphere have made it a very popular destination for urban explorers and ghost hunters alike. However, visitors are warned that the property is unsafe and trespassing is strictly prohibited. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Central Experimental Farm. Located in Ottawa, Ontario, this farm is a research facility that has been in operation since 1886. However, despite its scientific purpose, the farm has a reputation for being haunted. Visitors to the farm have reported seeing ghosts, hearing unexplained noises, and also feeling an eerie presence. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former farm worker who died on the property, as well as the ghost of a woman who is said to haunt the farm's historic farmhouse. There are also rumors of a ghostly horse-drawn carriage that can be seen driving through the farm's fields. While the exact reason for the farm's haunting remains unknown, many believe that the many tragedies that have occurred on the property, including accidents and deaths, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy. The Central Experimental Farm is a fascinating and eerie location, and its haunting history and the ghostly tales surrounding it continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 2 spot today, we have Centralia. Located in Pennsylvania, this town is often referred to as one of the gateways to hell. That is due to the fire that spread in an underground coal mine underneath the town in 1962. The fire, which is believed to have been started by a trash fire that spread to the coal seam, has been burning for over 60 years and has caused the town to be evacuated due to toxic fumes and the risk of collapse. As the fire still blazes underground, it causes the smoke and poisonous gases to rise up from the ground, not only causing an eerie appearance, but also a very serious health hazard. The temperatures can be so hot in the area that one guy's backyard was measured at 626 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes the fire will also burn through supports underground, which in the end turns into a sinkhole. This has caused pets, wildlife, and residents to unsuspectingly get swallowed up into the hole. In 1984, the US government ordered a total evacuation of the town, but a handful of residents refused to leave and even went to court over the right to stay in the town for as long as they live. The abandoned buildings, cracked and buckled roads, and just eerie silence makes it a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal enthusiasts. Some believe that the town's dark history combined with the ongoing fire has caused the area to become haunted. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Eastern State Penitentiary. The Eastern State Penitentiary, located located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is known for its haunting history. The prison was operational for almost 150 years from 1829 until its closure in 1971, and it was once the home to some of the country's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone. The prison's imposing Gothic architecture and innovative design, which placed an emphasis on solitary confinement and rehabilitation, made it one of the most famous prisons of its time. However, its harsh conditions and notorious history also make it a popular spot for ghost hunters and people who love all things paranormal. Visitors have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghosts, including the ghost of a guard who was killed by an inmate. Some even claim to have been touched or pushed by unseen forces. The prison's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to fascinate as well as frighten visitors to this day.